He was known as the silver-haired heartbreaker in Hollywood, the man who turned Pretty Woman into a fairy tale. That's how charismatic and composed he was. For decades, that reputation was sustained in pristine condition. All that changed at the age of 76. Gere finally shared a secret that had been concealed for many decades. His 5 women that he secretly had a crush on. They are American angels with unreachable beauty that many people would be too afraid to ever come near, except for Gere. When you hear who those women are, you would be amazed by how close Gere's love was. Number 1 on Richard Gere's list was Julia Roberts, the one who made him lose control. Julia Roberts comes first on Richard Gere's list, not because she happened to be the most famous, but because she was the only female actor who ever made him forget that he's acting. Their romantic chemistry on the film Pretty Woman wasn't something that came from a director's orchestration or the enforcement of a script. It came from her. Julia Roberts has a natural ease to slipping past his defenses, something Gere has admitted to more than once. Being around Julia Roberts made him feel like he's doing something unsafe, something acting shouldn't ever make a person feel. The one that stuck with him came about in a quiet rehearsal, long before the cameras were ever rolling. They were sitting at a little restaurant table, blocking a scene and talking about their lines, when Julia made the briefest touch with her fingertip to his hand under the table. She did it with the purpose of the scene, to create a gentle, emotional buildup, but for Gere, the effect went physical. And then she did this little thing with her fingers, he has said, and suddenly we weren't doing a scene. We were doing us. That was when he realized the ease with which Julia could draw him out of character and into something much more real. The fact that made this so effective was that Julia was so natural about the whole thing. She laughed freely, leaned in closely, touched his arm without thinking, looked directly into his eyes, and held them long enough to make Richard forget his next line. Rumors swirled throughout the crew about their relationship. One cameraman has since confessed that he ceased filming on one occasion, as he felt like he was catching them at a private moment. Richard appreciated Julia's naivety and thirst for acting. The last thing she was intimidating like Sharon Stone. Nor was she the destructress like Diane Lane. Richard saw that she was warm and open and refreshingly truthful. And this, Richard has said, made her the most dangerous of them all. To this day, Richard has admitted that were Julia to ask him to poof out for the weekend, just to see what she had planned for him at the end of the tunnel, he wouldn't have thought twice about it. He would have vanished. Number 2, Sharon Stone. Coming in at number 2 was Sharon Stone, the woman who knew how to turn danger into desire. Richard Gere still recalls the exact moment Sharon Stone entered his world, because his body had a reaction before his mind could process what his body was trying to do. There were no formalities and no polite Hollywood nice-to-meet-yous either. Sharon Stone just moved through the crowded room toward him and then reached up and in a single slow motion brushed an imaginary piece of lint off his shoulder before she smiled not sweetly, but as if she were choosing him. That was when he knew he was in trouble. Gere has said that Sharon did not flirt in the way other women flirted. She was a hunter, and it was meant as the ultimate compliment. What interested him most in her was not only the passion he felt with her, but what he saw in the way she worked. On a set, she could move in an instant from being playful with the crew to being savage-focused in a way that threatened him. Richard has told the anecdote that Sharon was able to improvise a line that hit the very center of a scene. If he blinked, she'd steal the scene, he has said about the necessity of being awake while acting with her. He was deeply admiring of this trait of hers. She didn't wait around for the directions. Gere has remembered about Sharon. She made the directions. Indeed, she was not shy about defending a director, moving closer than was written, and even disrupting the tempo of a scene, if she believed that the truth was hidden deeper inside. Gere was utterly amazed by this quality of hers. In one of the rehearsals, Sharon reached out and grabbed his wrist in the middle of the sentence and whispered, "React, don't act." This was not only outside the script, it wasn't even in the context of the scene. It shocked him back to reality. This one word taught him the secret of presence that no acting teacher ever could. Sharon Stone shocked his senses both in his acting profession and in his real life. Number 3, Diane Lane. Coming in at number 3, there is the quiet flame, and the one Richard Gere almost went over the edge with, which is Diane Lane. What happens between actors such as Richard Gere and a co-star such as Diane Lane when they find themselves in a situation where their acting becomes a challenge to determine whether they are acting or not, has even been confirmed by the director. It happened to these two actors, and Richard Gere never had any doubts as to why, which was a challenge to some women, such as Sharon Stone, as followed below. Diane had an ear that listened in such a way that every word he uttered struck a deeper note than he meant. Gere acknowledged that Diane was able to totally change the temperature of an entire scene with one breath. The turning point was experienced during the shooting of Unfaithful. In a read-through of Unfaithful, it was supposed that Diane was supposed to say a single phrase laced with guilt. Instead, she took a step closer and whispered, "Don't answer yet. Let it hurt first." Richard froze in shock. Never had any actress employed silence like that on him before. This was the hallmark of a great actress like Diane. She acted through her wounds, not her training. As he would later reveal, Diane makes you act with your truth, not your talent. In a seasoned actor like Gere, this was both thrilling and terrifying. She would pause in her gaze a fraction of a second too long, breathe in sync with her partner, change the tone of her voice in consonance with her partner's mood. Such surgical gestures made Richard feel understood in ways he never dreamed he would be on a film set. In one take, Diane's voice shook just a little, just a real, genuine shake, and it was not supposed to happen that way. Yet rather than cutting, Richard reaches for her hand. Diane lets the moment linger. For a moment, they do not act, they simply are. This, precisely, is what Richard Gere spends entire life searching for, and this, precisely, is what places Diane Lane in his mind somewhere that even he doesn't quite understand. The fourth is Michelle Pfeiffer, the woman who disarmed him without touching him. Richard Gere did not think Michelle Pfeiffer would influence him in the manner she did. The influence she exerted on him came from a far scarier element. It is because she didn't have to use her body to get his full attention. Just this aspect placed her in his list, because her influence came from her mystery. The exact point when he caught this obsession with her occurred at a casting session towards the latter end of the 1980s. Michelle entered, sat across from Gere, folded her hands, and just stared at him with razor-sharp intensity. 10 long seconds slipped by. There were no smiles, only eyes that seemed to absorb every last thought racing through his head. Gere went on. Michelle didn't need to say a word. She could see right through me. No other actress had ever done that with him before. Her work ethic made the experience even more intoxicating. Michelle was commendably precise. Michelle was frighteningly precise. She did not rehearse for memorization. She rehearsed for erasure, to eliminate the false until only truth was left. When Michelle came into a scene, she went right through you coolly, effortlessly, almost surgically. In one test encounter, Gere made an attempt to improvise an emotional moment. Michelle didn't counteract it in a way that was intended. She took a quick breath, allowed a genuine tremble to invade her voice, and whispered, "You're not to lie to me. Not here." This was not in the script, but it affected Richard more than any sensual moment ever had. He adored the way she controlled herself, the way she made every tiny gesture count, and the way she drew him in rather than pushing him away. As Gere was quoted saying in private, "You don't pursue Michelle's body. You pursue Michelle's depth." That was what made Michelle unforgettable. Number 5 is Sophia Loren, the impossible dream he never outgrew. There was no Richard Gere-Sophia Loren coupling for reasons of chemistry, danger, or stolen moments. He put Sophia Loren on his list because she inspired him, made him feel something he had in years longed for as a boy, awe. The moment which cemented his obsession with her occurred long before they were to share a frame or exchange a single professional utterance. It was at a European Awards event towards the end of the 1980s. Sophia came towards him with her characteristic Italian ease, pressed her palm gently against his cheek, and said, "You look far too serious for a man with eyes like yours." Richard couldn't find his voice. He laughed about it years later, but in that moment he was paralyzed. The 40-something movie star, reduced to an awkward teenager in the presence of a living legend. It was not the touch that cemented his adoration, but the way that Sophia worked. She did not have to make a scene or wring a lot of emotion. She demanded quiet, asking all of the people around her, including Gere, to meet her on the level of truth. At a masterclass they both participated in, Sophia encouraged a group of young actors. If you don't live with your heart open, the camera will know. Richard has never forgotten those words. They helped him change the way he dealt with vulnerability on camera. To Richard, the mere presence of Sophia meant he had to measure himself against the pull she embodied. He had to stand taller and work harder as an actor. I never felt Sophia the way I felt other women. I felt the urge to be worthy of her, he has admitted privately. And it's not because the two have the chemistry or the passion, which obviously exists. But it's because Sophia has been the dream he could never outrun. With the news of Richard Gere spilling the beans on the 5 actresses he has been most in love with, which one surprised you the most? And will any of those emotions have been reciprocated? Do let us know the answers through your comments below.